At this moment, I'm extremely angry, to the point where I'm trembling. If my spouse, Sandy, were to enter the room, I'd better not tell you. Just wrapped up a project here in Denver, and boy, am I glad to be away from the mess back home. I've had this gut feeling that my wife, Sandy, has been seeing someone else, and tonight, my suspicions were confirmed. It doesn't matter how long it's been going on. Our marriage is as good as dead. It's funny how you never see these things coming, even after 8 years together. Initially, I thought about confronting them, but what's the point? It's clear my marriage is over. Plus, the guy she's with could probably wipe the floor with me. So here I am, feeling isolated. Only someone who's been in my shoes can truly understand this kind of pain. I'm not interested in the typical comforting lines like, "I understand what you're going through," or offers to talk about it. I'm keeping this to myself for now. I need to figure out what to do next, but first, I need to clear my head, and that's not going to be quick. The idea of being intimate with my wife again is revolting to me, especially with images of her with him. Thankfully, their disrespect didn't extend to our home bed. They used hotels. Now, with a notepad ready, I'm trying to decide on my next steps. If Sandy had been the stereotypical bombshell, maybe I could have anticipated this, or at least been on the lookout for clues. She's not the big-breasted, long blonde-haired, towering beauty type. But that's not to say Sandy isn't attractive. She's around 5'6", with short brown hair and a fit body. Not the kind to turn heads in a dramatic fashion, but certainly not lacking in appeal. Compared to his wife, Sandy would barely score a 5. So the question is, why would he be interested in my wife? Probably just because he can. Sandy started working at Logan Industries about 2 years back, right after our son Danny was born. We have enough to get by with my salary, but she wanted the lifestyle our friends enjoyed. "Steve, if I work, it'll ease some financial stress off you, and you won't need to put in so much overtime. It'd be great to have you around more," she argued. Her parents even offered to babysit Danny, so she could work at least part-time. She had a point, but I still thought Danny needed her at home a bit longer. Little did I know, she was already on the job hunt. It was at a charity auction where we, or rather, I should say, encountered Richard Logan. My boss handed his tickets to us, admitting his disdain for such events, and I saw it as a chance for a pleasant night out with my wife. When he entered the room with his wife, everyone's attention was on them. He was tall, attractive, and wealthy, which gave him a kind of celebrity status. He was charming, and it seemed like he had every woman's admiration, including my wife's. "That's Richard Logan and his wife Connie," my wife whispered to me. "He owns 3 companies around here, and his wife was a fashion model. The dress she's wearing tonight probably costs more than my entire wardrobe," she observed quietly. "But they're likely not as happy as we are," I responded, giving my wife a kiss on the cheek. "Yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have that sort of money, even just for a bit?" she pondered. Later that evening, we somehow ended up talking to them. I can't remember how the conversation turned to our jobs or Sandy's interest in returning to work, but it slipped my mind until Sandy mentioned it again weeks later. Richard really showed off his wealth that evening by winning the auctions for the top 5 items. When I called him out for showing off, my wife quickly corrected me, claiming he was doing it all for charity. I didn't buy it. It was clear he wanted everyone to see he could do whatever he pleased. It was obvious he liked being the center of attention. I couldn't help but notice his wife seemed to be watching him closely, as well as keeping an eye on all the attractive women there. It seemed like she didn't fully trust him. Nevertheless, 3 weeks later, I came home to find out Sandy had landed a part-time job at none other than Logan Industries in a newly established department. She was excited, saying it was likely to become a full-time role in 6 months. "Isn't it wonderful?" she said, clearly thrilled. I really wanted to say, heck no, but I didn't want to dampen her excitement. So I put on a brave face, smiled, and told her I was proud. "How did you find out about the job?" I asked. "My friend Debbie works there, and Richard asked her if she knew anyone job hunting. She mentioned me, and I sent in my resume. I didn't want to tell you until it was official. I had my interview last week and got the job offer the next day. Isn't that great?" she repeated, bubbling with excitement. "So you'll be working directly with Richard?" I pressed. "Yes, we're launching a new department focused on managing the charitable activities of his businesses. It might not seem like much, but I'll be evaluating all the charity requests they get and helping decide which ones they'll support. It's a big responsibility, she explained. I'm sure you're up for it, love, I reassured her. How about we go out for dinner to celebrate, I suggested, acknowledging we were tight on funds but optimistic about our financial future. That's how it all began. Soon, it was constant talk about Mr. Logan or Richard and his greatness, which almost made me sick. Occasionally, she mentioned needing to accompany him on day trips to assess different companies or sites, but they never stayed out overnight, considering our son, Danny. Steve, I need to be away next Tuesday night, she mentioned during dinner another week. Richard is considering a donation for a new wing at a small hospital in Alabama. We'll visit the hospital and then dine with their board. I'll be back by Wednesday to get Danny from my mother's, she explained. Why not fly back right after dinner? I assume you're using his private jet? I inquired. Mr. Logan prefers not to rush the visit, suggesting we might have additional matters to address the next morning, she responded, assuring me it was just for one night, with a reassuring smile. I wasn't comfortable with the situation, but I trusted my wife. It seemed unlikely Richard would make a move on Sandy, given his own situation at home. I wished her a fun trip, telling her I'd see her on Wednesday. I half-jokingly mentioned needing extra affection on Monday to make up for her absence on Tuesday. True to form, she made sure Monday was memorable, and upon her return on Wednesday, she made sure I was content. I believed our relationship and intimate life were both strong, or at least that's what I thought at the time. Life progressed. We enjoyed a bit more financial freedom, though Sandy's out-of-town trips became more frequent as the holidays approached. I realized I hadn't mentioned my job, which turns out to be quite relevant to the unfolding events. I work for a firm specializing in testing security systems and computer firewalls, making us the experts in assessing vulnerability to hackers. My background in accounting and computers places me in the team that focuses on banking clients. Our work often involves board members requesting us to attempt breaches or disruptions within their own systems to test their security. We dive into their computer systems, targeting specific accounts to simulate white-collar crimes. Around 65% of the time, we manage to breach their defenses, which often leads to the banks hiring us to resolve the vulnerabilities we exploited. The highlight of my career happened about 4 months ago when I used a fabricated Panamanian passport to open an account at a Bank of America branch. The bank president personally showed me around, boasting about the security measures in place, as I hinted at a substantial $20 million deposit. He assured me with overwhelming confidence about the bank's impregnable security, presenting it as a fortress against any breaches. This assurance was like waving a red flag in front of a bull for me. I thrive on such challenges. I gathered all necessary information for fund transfers, setting the stage for the upcoming action. My partner Kenny and I, acting like digital ninjas, penetrated their system and shuffled the financial deck within just 2 days. We siphoned funds from 4 unsuspecting accounts, pooling it into the one I had established under a fictitious company name. After the deed was done, I briefed the bank's contact who had commissioned the test, detailing the hows and whats of our digital heist with the precision of a master storyteller outlining the twists of a plot. This exploit wasn't just a job well done, it was a testament to our skill and a stark reminder of the digital vulnerabilities that even the most fortified institutions face. Unsurprisingly, they were very impressed with our work and immediately hired us to fix the security issues. The bank's president wasn't thrilled about the situation, but he managed to keep his job. That's my job, and I excel at it. Over the past 6 years, I've used about 8 different identities, complete with all the necessary documents that look indistinguishable from the real thing to most people. These fake documents would prove very useful soon. Just before Christmas, with a shopping list in hand and a nice bonus in my pocket, I decided to splurge a bit on gifts. I bought a new iPod for my wife and, on a whim, stopped by Victoria's Secret to pick out something special, claiming it was for her, but also a treat for myself. With the assistance of the staff, I chose a couple of risque outfits and, laden with gifts, made my way home. Since Sandy was at work, I managed to wrap most of the presents and hid them around the house. Sandy had returned home early that morning from a trip with Richard and hadn't even unpacked her suitcase yet. I decided to help out by putting away her things. As I emptied the suitcase onto the bed and began sorting, I came across a piece of lingerie that caught my attention. It was a bright red, lace-trimmed, crotchless panty set that I definitely would have remembered if I'd seen it before. The most disturbing part was finding the panties in a used condition, clearly indicating they had been worn recently. Other than that, there wasn't anything else suspicious in her suitcase, so I repacked everything and zipped it up. This lingerie set was my undeniable proof. I had a strong sense of who was involved, but the reason behind her actions baffled me. Our life together was more than satisfactory, yet it seemed Sandy desired more. That was the beginning of the end for us. If I hadn't decided to be helpful, or if Sandy had taken care of her things herself, she might have continued deceiving me, leaving me oblivious. That evening, she was in the mood for intimacy, but I couldn't bring myself to respond to her advances. I simply told her I was too preoccupied to be interested. However, I knew I needed more concrete evidence than just a revealing piece of lingerie to take action against Mr. Logan. Given my line of work, I reached out to a colleague who had previously assisted our firm. I explained that I'd be away for a project and wanted him to keep an eye on Sandy, aiming to track her movements and company. "Bob, I just need to know where she's going and who she's with," I said. I was sure of her infidelity, but required solid evidence to confront it. "Man, Steve, that's tough to hear. But don't stress. I'll uncover anything if it's there," he assured me. Together, we equipped the house, her vehicle, and even her purse with listening devices for surveillance. "Sandy, I'll only be away for a couple of nights at most. I want to wrap up this project before Christmas so we can spend the entire holiday together," I explained to her. "Plus, you'll have a chance to pick out my Christmas gift while I'm gone. Make sure it's something special, considering all the time you've spent away this year," I added, trying to provoke a reaction. She simply stared back, without a word. On Wednesday, I caught my flight to Denver and signaled Bob to start his surveillance. Kenny had already arrived, and we managed to complete our tasks by 6:30 p.m. "Let's go out for a beer or two and grab some dinner, Steve. There's an excellent seafood place just a couple of blocks from our hotel, and the waitresses are a sight for sore eyes," he suggested. "I'll be ready in 20 minutes. Just pick me up out front," I told him. I rang Sandy to let her know I was heading out for dinner and planned to turn in early, hoping to catch her before she got busy. "What's on your agenda tonight?" I inquired. "I'm just looking forward to a hot bath after putting Danny to bed. Then I'll probably read a bit," she responded. "Love you," she said before hanging up, but I didn't reciprocate. Her actions had extinguished that sentiment. Dinner turned out to be enjoyable, and the waitresses were indeed attractive, just as Ken mentioned. After a final drink in the hotel bar, I retired to my room, noticing a voicemail waiting for me. It was a brief message urging me to call back. "Steve, your cell was off," Bob started as soon as I called. I turned it off intentionally, wanted to enjoy one last good meal undisturbed before getting your update. "So what happened?" I pressed. He informed me Sandy had arranged for a babysitter and dined with Richard Logan. Post-dinner, they headed to room 312 at the Ramada Inn. Although he couldn't secure photos from inside, he captured images of them entering and promised to snap more as they exited. He also mentioned capturing some audio, but doubted I'd want to hear it. He booked the room just for a night, so I'll watch from your place tomorrow. "No worries, Steve. You won't have to pay for this," he mentioned, muttering to myself, "She's going to regret ever getting involved with him." I sat in my room, plotting my next steps. Divorcing Sandy seemed too straightforward. I aimed to affect her deeply, crafting a memorable Christmas for all the wrong reasons. By Thursday, I had outlined my plan, actionable mainly on the 23rd due to holiday closures. Armed with a fake passport and my son's birth certificate, I booked flights under an alias, choosing a complex route to obscure our destination. Holiday travel is chaotic, making it easy to blend in as everyone rushes to finalize their plans. I took out a cash advance on my credit card to avoid leaving a digital footprint. I also liquidated our CDs and emptied our safety deposit box, gathering all the cash we had. Since I planned to travel light with just a couple of outfits, I'd need the cash to buy clothes once we arrived at our destination. The last part of my plan took 3 days. Logan Industries did business with 2 local banks, including one where I held an account. My goal was to infiltrate the bank's mainframe, access Logan's account, and reroute those funds to our shared savings account. Sounds easy, right? Not quite, and I had to enlist Kenny's expertise. I wanted to minimize involving others to avoid getting anyone else implicated. If I encountered any issues, Kenny was my go-to for solutions. I decided on a practice run before taking any real action. Although we had experience with such operations, each bank system presented unique challenges without a uniform approach. The initial attempt was thwarted by the bank's firewall, stopping me in my tracks. However, the next day, with Kenny's advice, I breached the system and spent a couple of hours navigating through the accounts to gather the necessary information. I aimed to initiate the first transfer from Logan's account to mine late on Friday, December 24th, then immediately move the money to one of 8 international accounts. Timing was crucial. During that last week, I kept things quiet. I gathered all the details from Bob and prepared copies for Sandy, her parents, Richard's wife Connie, and my own parents, ensuring all but my parents received their copies on Christmas Eve. Danny and I decorated the tree and arranged the gifts underneath. Since discovering Sandy's affair with her obnoxious boss, I had been distant. By this point, she might have guessed I was aware of her affair, or at least sensed something was amiss. I had a small bag packed with clothes and a copy of Bob's report in my car's trunk, ready for December 24th. "Steve, you've been distant all week. Are you all right? Is there something you need to discuss?" Sandy inquired. It was time for the crucial moment. "Yes, Sandy, there's something we need to talk about, but I'd rather not spoil Christmas for Danny. Let's talk after the holidays," I proposed. "Well, we could still have a bit of fun tonight. It's been quite a while," she suggested, starting to unbutton her shirt. That's when I decided to confront the situation directly. "Is Richard too busy to see you tonight?" I retorted, then headed upstairs to the guest room. Once inside, I closed and locked the door behind me. I could barely hear her knocking and pleading from the other side. "Steve, we really need to talk. Can you open the door, please?" But to me, facing a horde of bikers seemed more appealing at that moment, as I lay in bed attempting to fall asleep. Eventually, I did manage to get some sleep, waking up just after 7 the next morning. I got out of bed, showered, shaved, and prepared myself for what I anticipated would be an extremely hectic day. I knew I'd need plenty of coffee to get through the upcoming 24 hours. By 9, Danny was already watching cartoons, and Sandy was on her way to the kitchen. Her eyes were swollen from lack of sleep, signaling she had a rough night. My concern for her had vanished. My only goal was to get through to 2 p.m. when I would start executing my plan. "When did you find out?" she eventually questioned. "Does it even matter now, Sandy?" I responded. "Is there anything I can say?" she continued. "What could you say? That it meant nothing? You don't love him, only me, and it was all a big mistake? Sure, you could say that and maybe more, but it wouldn't change how I feel now. I'm taking Danny to my parents' place this afternoon, and I don't want you there. You're no longer part of this family. I hope he was worth it, Sandy, because from my perspective, he wasn't," I coldly stated as I prepared to leave with Danny. After loading the car with presents and dressing Danny, I instructed him to say goodbye to his mother. She was oblivious to what was about to unfold, and I had no intention of tipping her off. "When will you return?" she inquired. "We'll be back when we're back," I answered vaguely. "Do you have plans to go out?" "No, I'll be here," she said, still unsure of what lay ahead. As I closed the door behind me, she was crying. "Where's Sandy?" my mom asked as we entered. "Do you want the short version or the full story?" I responded, while my dad took Danny to the Christmas tree. "She's not here because she's been having an affair with her boss for some time," I explained. After the initial shock passed, I informed them that Danny and I were leaving to start fresh elsewhere and would be in touch once we were settled. "Mom, it's better if you don't ask too many questions," I suggested. "I plan to make those responsible pay dearly for their actions, aiming where it'll hurt them most. Let's enjoy this afternoon as a family, since it might be a while before we see each other again." At 4 in the afternoon, I initiated the transfer, moving all the funds from Logan's account into Sandy's and my shared savings account, temporarily. By 6:30, Danny and I boarded the first of 3 flights out of the country. Sandy must have tried calling my cell countless times before realizing I wasn't going to pick up. I had already turned off my phone and tossed it into a dumpster a couple of blocks away from my parents' home. Just before we caught our next flight, I moved the funds from our savings into the initial overseas account. From there, The money was set to distribute among 8 other accounts by the early hours of Christmas morning. I planned to bring joy to many kids on Christmas with this gesture. Glancing at my watch, I could only envision the astonishment on people's faces as my planned surprises were unveiled on Christmas Eve. According to what Bob found, Connie ended up kicking her husband so forcefully over the revelations that he needed medical intervention. Sandy's parents were equally dismayed by their present and didn't hesitate to express their disappointment in her choices. By the time Sandy realized we weren't returning, she had received the package containing photos, recordings, and a letter from me detailing how I discovered her betrayal and stating my inability to forgive her. "You don't deserve mine or Danny's love, so you're not going to have it from this day forth. The house and everything else in it is yours to do with as you wish. Danny and I will be starting a new life without you, and I only hope that one day I'll find it in me to forgive you. But I don't see that day coming for a long time," I told her. "By the way, since the 2 of you started your unholy union under the pretext of donating money to good causes, I've decided to help the 2 of you out. The $1.2 million from their Bank of America account has been given away under the name of Logan Industries to 8 children's hospitals and countries in need. I've arranged for these organizations to express their gratitude to Logan Industries exactly 1 year from now. Feel free to inform Richard. I hope he enjoys the repercussions of your affair, as it's turned out to be his costliest mistake. Wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'd like to say we'll run into each other, but that's not likely to happen anytime soon. I'll keep Mom informed, so if you're in her good graces, perhaps she'll share updates with you. And if you decide to file for divorce, go ahead. I won't oppose it." We arrived in Panama on Christmas morning. I had arranged to rent a 2-bedroom condo near the capital's downtown area. I managed to keep some of Logan Industries' money for our expenses. Although living here is affordable, I knew I'd eventually need to find work. Danny wondered about his mom initially, but stopped after a few weeks. I hired an affordable, reliable nanny, and we started to feel like a family. With limited resources, I launched a software security business, avoiding big banks but gradually gaining recognition among smaller, independent clients who began seeking me out. 5 years since moving, someone knocked on my door. When I heard about a newcomer in the business here, I guessed it was you. "Can I come in?" he joked with a laugh. We caught up for over 2 hours before heading to dinner. It turns out Logan Industries wasn't thrilled about the unexpected charitable contributions and ended up replacing Richard as president. He nearly went bankrupt refilling the $1.2 million and after divorcing his wife, Connie. Sandy lost her job once it was discovered the funds went through her account. Although there was an attempt to charge her, she was ultimately found not guilty. As soon as I caught wind of the situation, I suspected your handiwork. My hunch was confirmed when our company started losing business to a new player in town. Believe it or not, I've brought down an offer from the Home Office to either buy you out. He came to offer me the position of leading the new Southern Division as I reviewed the contract he presented. The salary outlined was in line with U.S. standards, meaning that with the cost of living here, I could enjoy a luxurious lifestyle while engaging in the work I excel at, but with significantly less stress and oversight required on my part. He urged me to consider the proposal, mentioning he wouldn't be returning to the U.S. until the week's end, giving me ample time to ponder the decision. During his stay, we indulged in the local cuisine and culture, and he seemed particularly enamored with the vibrant Latin American lifestyle, finding a particular interest in a local woman. When he left, he was noticeably pleased, taking with him a signed contract and a letter intended for Sandy, which also included photos. In the letter to Sandy, I detailed how our son has been thriving in his new environment. I explained that he's attending a small, reputable private school where he has become fluent in Spanish, likely surpassing his proficiency in English. This linguistic shift is significant, considering the global importance of Spanish as a language, offering him invaluable communication skills that will serve him in countless ways as he grows. Furthermore, he started learning Chinese, a strategic choice given that approximately a quarter of his schoolmates are of Asian descent. His adeptness with computers is unmatched, suggesting that he's on a path to potentially succeed me in my business endeavors. He's aware that we're no longer together, but I haven't explained the reasons to him. He's simply adjusted to the reality that he's with me, and you're elsewhere. Due to obvious reasons, I couldn't disclose my destination to anyone, and after I departed, I understand that your parents moved in with you, while mine did the same with me. My mom told me she relayed all the updates I sent your way once she moved past her initial anger, so you're up to date on how Danny's doing. For what it's worth, I've let go of my resentment towards you. My current partner pointed out that I was holding on to too much from the past, and it was time for me to let go and move forward. It's unfortunate how things turned out. You would have really enjoyed life here. I have no plans to return, especially since my parents are considering buying a place here to spend the winters, leaving me with no ties back home. So, if you ever wish to see Danny, you'll need to travel here, at least for the foreseeable future. Mom never mentions you, and I don't ask about you, but I do hope you've managed to recover after losing your job. However, learning about Richard's downfall did bring a bit of satisfaction. That's pretty much everything I have to share. I hope you find someone you can stay true to and start anew. As for me, I've met someone incredible. She's embraced Danny as if he were her own and brought happiness back into my life, similar to the joy we once shared. We're planning to get married soon, especially since Danny will be welcoming a new sister come spring. I'm ready to commit once more. You're welcome to write to Danny, but this will be my last letter to you. Sandy struggled to get through my letter due to her tears. After everything that happened, she never crossed paths with Richard again. Finding a new job was challenging for her, given the fallout and negative media attention. The only men interested in her now were either not her type or just seeking a casual relationship. She's currently seeing a salesman from another town, but they're proceeding cautiously. From the photos, she can tell Danny is doing well and looks joyful, and she wishes she could visit him, but finances have been tight lately. She lost her home after failing to keep up with the mortgage payments when the real estate market crashed. She repeatedly blames herself for succumbing to Richard's superficial charm, thinking she would still have her old life if not for that mistake. However, she recognizes those thoughts of what could have been are all that remain for her now.